everyone's favorite transit to hate, Mercury retrograde, is back, y'all. This is Nikki from Illuminated Movement Astrology, here to talk to you about this Mercury retrograde, what it is, what it isn't, how you can survive it, and more importantly, how you can thrive through it. So, Mercury back in retrograde, right? It retrograded at 8 degrees Capricorn on December the 12th or the 13th, depending on where you live in the world. So what's special about this Mercury retrograde? It happens all the time, right? Well, this one happens to have a little bit of an underscore story. We started 2023. Mercury went retrograde, right? We came into 2023 with Mercury in retrograde in Capricorn. Mercury went direct at 8 degrees Capricorn on January the 18th. Fast forward all the way back to the end of this year, the new moon in Sag, right, that just happened. Mercury went retrograde at, you guessed it, 8 degrees Capricorn. So we've got this beginning is the end, is the beginning is the end, Ouroboros kind of energy to close out 2023. And this is significant for a number of reasons. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about what is Mercury retrograde exactly. So, I get questions from people all the time who are newer to astrology, who are like, I hear about these things, but I don't really get it. What is it? So we will talk about that a little bit. There'll be timestamps below, so you can, jump to the part that's more specific for you. If you already know what Mercury retrograde is, and you're like, I can fast forward that. You can do that. We will take a look at why this one is special, how it ties into the bigger picture, and how we can really use this to our advantage, right, to move forward. Because astrology does not determine what happens to you, but it does give you the weather. So it's nice to know, hey, it's going to snow to the place I'm traveling to, right? Maybe I should bring a jacket instead of a bikini, right? These things are good to know. So this is how we're going to talk about this energy going forward. So without further ado, let's talk about Mercury retrograde. What is it exactly and what is it not? So Mercury retrograde, we hear about it. We hear about it a lot, particularly with, the internet being a bigger thing and social media. I know there was a point in time when there was some celebrities that started really talking about this Mercury retrograde thing. And it started becoming more like, talked about in the collective consciousness, okay, or in the consensus consciousness. So great. So what is it? Well, the planet's not really moving backwards, first of all. It just looks that way from our advantage point on Earth, right? So the planet just looks like it's slowing down, it's slowing its motion a little bit. And so to us, it looks like it's going back. It's kind of like if you were driving in a car or on a train or something like that, and you're passing someone, maybe they're going a little bit, maybe they slow down a little bit, but you're accelerating. It looks like they're moving in backwards motion. They're not. Right? They didn't just suddenly throw the car in reverse and decide to go backwards. It's just that you're moving at a little bit different speeds. And from where you're seeing things, it looks like there's a backward motion. So Mercury retrograde, does it mean if it's backwards that things will go backwards? No. Okay. There's nothing backwards about it. There's nothing, really, really, really detrimental. So I want to be clear on that because there's so many places and spaces with the astrological resurgence where people are talking about, oh my gosh, Mercury retrograde is just this horrible thing, terrible. Oh no, no good, bad days, right? You don't need to hide under a rock for the next 3 weeks. You're going to be fine. So what can happen? Mercury, the messenger god, right? In the Greek pantheon, he carries messages between the worlds, between the above world, earth world, and the below world, as it happened in the mythology of the Greeks and the Romans. So he carries messages. He's associated with messages. He's associated with travel, moving fast, things that have to do with our learning, our thought process, and what we have thought of as the left brain versus right brain. He tends to be more associated with the left brain, although neuroscience is showing us that there really is not quite the correlation that we think between left and right brain, that the brain is a lot more like a school of fish as it moves through its messaging. But that's probably a video for another day. Anyhow, going back to Mercury retrograde. So retrograde motion Sometimes it can tap in a little bit more towards the right side of the brain, or what we call the creative side of the brain. Okay. It's a little bit more of, you guys, if you've followed me for a little while, you know that I talk about masculine and feminine in yin yang or inhale, exhale. Okay. So Mercury really doesn't have an assignment of the yin or the yang or the masculine, feminine. Okay. It's more, I guess, androgynous. But what it really means is that when it goes retrograde, it's more of the yin phase. It's the inhale phase, right? It's not as outwardly directed in its motion. So it's meant to help us reflect, review, revise, remeasure, whatever we need to do to go over something again, or to spend more time with what we already have before we go forward. Okay, there's this notion, particularly with the Industrial Revolution and things that have been happening with the Aquarian age, of like, we have to go, 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 go. Also Pluto and Capricorn. That really kind of pushes this towards a height. But this sense that we always have to be on 100%. We always have to go 100%. Everything has to move, 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 move. If you're not in motion, you're stagnating. And there's some truth to that, but that's not really what's happening, right? We need rest and digest. We need reflection. We need quiet time. We need to stand back, look at the projects that we have, and see how they're doing, right? And this is what Mercury retrograde is so great at helping us do. It's helping us to look at the potential problems, look at our progress, look at where we are before we just pedal to the metal, take off. Okay. So don't listen to the media. Don't listen to astrologers that tell you the sky is falling and every bad thing that's going to happen is going to happen. Because if you assume that that's going to happen, the law of assumption, right, you're more likely to experience Mercury retrograde in kind of a negative way. Not that those things can't happen. I know I've definitely had some Mercury retrograde experiences where I did have to do things once, twice, thrice, more than that. But what I want to say is that the things that I've had to redo during a Mercury retrograde period always were to my benefit. No matter how annoying it seemed, no matter how much I just wanted to go, 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 if I had to redo something, revise something, stop, have a different conversation, it always worked out for the better. So the do-overs are often do-betters. Okay. So that's an important thing to know here. Return of the exes, return of things like that, right? We hear this a lot. Yeah, it can happen. It's a thing. But that's okay, right? Sometimes we need a return to an old person, an old place, a thing, an idea, whatever, to get closure, right? So sometimes that energy is really, really helpful when we can go back to something, look at it with our newer eyes, our newer experience, right? And say, okay, what would I do now? Do I feel the same way? Do I want to go back and do this again? Do I maybe try this again and realize I'm such a different person? This isn't what I really wanted, wherever it is. But there could also be a return to something else. Like, let's say, you had a hobby that you really liked, or a career piece, or something that happened in your life and you had to put it down for some reason. Like you got married, or childbirth, or there was an illness in the family, or you got really busy with a different job, or whatever happened. It doesn't matter. Sometimes Mercury retrograde can bring those things back to you. It's like, oh, now I'm in a different space and different time where I can pick back up something that was meaningful to me. And now I can review it. I can kind of dust off those old files, right? And I can make it meaningful to me again. And I really want this to be part of my future. Okay, so these are ways that Mercury retrograde is not terrible, right? It's a really, really, really useful transit that happens about 3 to 4 times a year. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit better sense about Mercury retrograde in general. I want to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde if you have it in your natal chart, which is just another word for your birth chart, or if you have Mercury retrograde in one of your progressions, whether you use the typical progressions or use solar arc. Okay. So if you have one of these things, don't let anyone ever, 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 ever tell you that it means that you're intellectually deficient or you can't communicate or that you don't think right or whatever nonsense comes up. Okay. Sometimes there's a lot of well-meaning astrological information that's being shared or on the internet or being talked about, whatever, but it's out of context. Okay. If we use Mercury retrograde, well, let me back this up. There's many different ways to use astrology in general. You can use astrology to look at world events. You can look at astrology to answer questions. You can look at astrology to help personal development, like more of a like a psychological way of using it. There's all these different uses. Okay. And depending on the context in which you're using retrograde, it has a little bit different meaning. Okay, so if we're talking about, let's say, the astrology where you're asking questions, known as horary astrology, if you're doing something like that or you're doing predictive, yes, a Mercury retrograde transit will indicate, hey, not a great time to start new contracts or do something in a space where you need like travel or communication or something in that realm. It's kind of like, wait. Okay. But what happened is because of the misconstruing of astrology for so many other reasons, which I need to do a video on at some point, it got kind of convoluted into, wrapped into this space of like, if you have Mercury retrograde in your natal chart or you're experiencing it through a progression, that it meant that bad things would happen to you. Like you can never start a business or you can never, do something new or you can't buy a car, you can't travel. Well, that's not true. It's not true at all. So if you have one of these things, what does it actually mean? Right? So we know what it's not. So what is it? So when Mercury goes retrograde, it's more of an internal, more of a reflective energy. So what do I mean by that? So it can be something to the effect of maybe your inner life, your inner monologue is very, 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 very bright, right? It's very vibrant. It's very active. But maybe out in the world, you're a little bit quieter. Maybe you don't say a lot. Okay, that could be one of these things. It could be that, in a sense, like the way that you take in information may be a little bit different in some way. Like maybe you take in information through colors or sounds. Maybe you learn better mathematically if someone teaches you through music, for example. Something like that. Does it mean that you're wrong or you're backwards? No. It's just a little bit different than what we've done for a while. The other piece that I want to say about Mercury retrograde in the natal or in a progressed chart is that when you come up in to a Mercury retrograde transit, okay, so what do I mean by that? You have your own specific chart, right? You have your own specific snapshot of the moment you came into this world. You have those kinds of energies encoded and loaded within you, right? You have these things that as you move through life, the planets move as well, and they progress, right? They mature, they change a little bit, just like we all do as humans, right? We don't look the same. We don't want the same things as we did when we were 5, as we do when we were 30, 40, 50 and beyond, right? So your chart has the same energy. So those things are specific to you personally. Now, there's a space where the planets right now in the sky, where they are in our universe, are in a specific space, and those are two different things. So where the planets are when they transit, talking about when Mercury retrogrades as a transit, if you have something natally or by progression where your Mercury is in retrograde, you may feel a little different connection. Okay. So when Mercury is retrograde in your chart and you're experiencing a transit, you may actually feel not a having to redo things, not a having to slow down, not an internal, like kind of yin moment. You may feel the opposite. You may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in the flow. Like I'm grooving. I am riding this wave. I'm ready. I've got so much more clarity. I have my thought process is really focused. And I'm ready to just go, 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 go. And then other people are like, oh my gosh, Mercury retrograde, like you can't go forward, you have to go backwards. And you're like, what are you talking about? I actually don't experience that. Neither of you is wrong, right? You just have a different relationship to what's going on. So don't ever let anyone tell you that, again, you're wrong for having a Mercury retrograde or there's something wrong with you. It's not true. And if you do have one of these things in general, it could be a moment where you're able to move forward in a bigger way. So allow yourself the freedom to be able to do that. Okay. Whew. So let's take a look at these transits and what do they mean and what is going on. So I'm going to pull up my chart. Okay. So we have the chart pulled up here for when Mercury turned retrograde, which was on December the 12th or the 13th, depending on where you live in the world. So we had this new moon in Sagittarius, which I will link the video for that below, on the same day, a few hours prior to Mercury turning retrograde. So at the time of the new moon, Mercury was stationed, meaning from our vantage point on Earth, it looked like it was stopped. Okay. When a planet is stationary, when it's in that position where it looks like it's stopped, it has a little bit more energetic charge to it, right? It's like if you're gathering up energy, you're on like the starting lineup and you're about to run a sprint, right? You're gathering all your power, you're ready to go, and then you go. Okay, so a station is the gathering energy moment. And what was happening here is we had that new moon energy. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the bottom of my chart here. New moon in Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius, what do we believe? How do we view life's adventures? What do we have faith in? Where's our joy? Where's our optimism? Where's our lightness? Where do we want to look at other viewpoints, other places and spaces, right? Sagittarius wants to go beyond, wants to go beyond what is known. So that's why it has an association with long distance travel, meaning going to like a foreign country, for example, or something that you can't necessarily reach just in a short like day trip by car. It also has to do with other cultural aspects, people from different backgrounds, different philosophies, different theosophies, okay? And being able to level up your consciousness, your higher mind by engaging with things that are beyond your comfort zone. Okay, so that's a lot of the Sagittarius. And Sagittarius, the planet that's in charge of the sign Sagittarius is Jupiter. So we want to take a look at where Jupiter was at this time. Oops, sorry about that. Jupiter in Taurus retrograde. So Taurus, what does Taurus have to do with? It has to do with our survival. It has to do with my ability to take care of myself, my ability to love myself, to value myself, in order that I can provide for myself and others. Okay. So that's a lot of what Taurus has to do with. It has to do with material things. It's an earth sign. So earth is about our five senses, it's about our physical, tangible experience. So we have Jupiter sitting there. It's been there for a little while. It's retrograde at the time that Mercury went retrograde, station retrograde. And Jupiter will go, what's the exact date? Oh, it's right some after Christmas Day. I want to say it's the 26th, but I could be wrong. When Jupiter will go direct again. But Jupiter's been retrograde for a few months now, asking us to reflect, to go within and to say, well, what's valuable to us? Do we have self-worth? Right? Co-present with Uranus over here. So Uranus in the sign of Taurus, it went in there in 2018 and it'll be there until 2026, shaking the earth, right? I mean, if you're alive right now, does it not feel like the structures and the things that you thought were solid, or the values that you had, or the resources you had access to, does it not feel like it's been shaken up, right? In whatever way that means for you? Well, yes, that would be our friend Uranus wanting to shake things up, wanting to change things up, wanting to bring our attention to what's no longer working, what needs a revolution, What needs an upgrade? What needs to be, Uranus is very, very impersonal here. So I'm going to say it this way. What needs to be cut off and thrown away? Okay. Uranus doesn't care about your feelings. Sorry, everyone who's got, a moon here or some kind of sensitivity like a Pisces or a Cancer. Uranus does not care about your feelings. Okay. It's just like, hey, it's time to get this done. It's time to go. Let's do it. So we've had these planets in Taurus, and Jupiter here, again, retrograde, like really asking us, how do we value ourselves? How do we feel like we can take care of ourselves? Where is our security? Where do we need to take another look at our resources, or how we are valuing resources, how we're able to allocate resources, how we are able to have faith in our ability to provide for ourselves, our faith in our ability to love ourselves. Do we have joy? Do we have optimism? All of those kinds of things. So it's been a big ask here in Taurus with that Jupiter being placed here, and it'll be there through part of next year as well. So we had this new moon. We have Mars here also. Mars. Hello, Mars, the planet that is currently ruling this North Node. Okay, North Node in Aries is going to be there until January of 2025. So what does that all mean together? Well, we're looking at, do we have a passion, a drive, a ability to actualize our visions, our dreams, our ability to take care of ourselves, to love ourselves, to value ourselves? Where's our faith in that? Do we believe it's outside of us? Do we believe that we have enough internal resources, whatever they may be, enough talents, right, to go into the unknown, to step outside of our comfort zone? Do we believe that when we shoot that Sagittarius arrow, it's going to hit a target? Do we have faith in those things? Do we have Mars is about action. Do we even have the kind of the gumption to pull that bow back and shoot the arrow in the first place? Or are we just having kind of an Eeyore moment of like, well, coulda, woulda, shoulda. The world sucks. Everything's terrible. Nobody loves me. Like, where are we in that? Because a depressed Mars it's a sad thing to behold, right? Depressed Mars, it's that drive, it's that warrior energy turned inward and squashed down. And that's a tough thing when we lose our zest for life, right? So Mars and Sagittarius trying to get us to rev back up that zest for life, rev back up, muster up, even if it's just like the tiniest little ember of a spark, of a hint of a flame of there will be another tomorrow, of, you know what, I got this. You know what, I don't know how this is going to work, but it's going to, and it'll be okay. It's really helping us try to move into those spaces. So we had all this going on that new moon. And then here we have our friend, Mercury, the topic of this conversation, at 8 degrees of Capricorn. So Mercury in Capricorn, what is that about? Well, Mercury in Capricorn is, and I mean this in the best ways possible, it's shrewd, it's strategic, it's calculating, it's non-emotional. And these are all, I want to say these are good things. Of course, they have a negative connotation as well, but it's kind of this moment of, okay, I have this goal. I want to run a marathon, but I'm not a runner. I'm kind of a couch potato, but I have a goal, right? I have this goal. Okay, so Mercury in Capricorn is the impetus to say, all right, I've got this goal. I want to achieve this thing, Capricorn, and I need to make some sacrifices. I need to have some discipline. That's that Saturn part of Capricorn to achieve this goal. So that means that I need to get up and I need to start walking around my neighborhood. I need to get up. I need to do this every day. And it means I have to sacrifice having pizza and beer and cheesecake with my friends Instead, I need to maybe stay at home. I maybe need to eat a healthier meal. I maybe need to, again, like take an extra walk because my goal is to run a long distance. So Mercury in Capricorn is great at being able to discern, being able to kind of cut to the chase, if you will, and say, all right, this is what I need, this is what I don't need. And that's really, really valuable. If you're trying to achieve any kind of goal, you need discipline. You just do. It's not a bad word. I'm reframing personally my relationship to the word discipline because for me, and I know a lot of other people that I've talked to, discipline meant punishment. And not only did it mean punishment, it meant unfair, unjust punishments. And so I've been working on moving away from that and looking at discipline in the form of the root word disciple, student of, right? Devotion to something. So when I look at discipline now, I look at it as this, I'm choosing to be a student of this. I'm choosing to devote myself to this goal or this thing that I'm trying to achieve instead of the other, right? So hopefully that helps whoever needed that. So Mercury here, I mean, it's really, really helpful in Capricorn, helping us see clearly. Capricorn, again, when I talked about not caring about your feelings, this is not a Ben Shapiro moment. I'm not a big fan of that individual, not to get political or whatever. He says some good things, he says some not good things, like any other person. But anyway, going forward, it's non-emotional, and that's good because let's go back to that marathon moment, right? Like maybe it's like, oh, I don't feel like it. I feel like having this. I don't feel, right? We can get stuck in that. I don't feel, or I feel so sad or whatever, when you really just need to get up and take a walk, right? And if you get up and take a walk, you feel better. That's the thing about feelings, right? Is they are fluid. This is coming from a Cancer rising, so I get the feelings thing. Um, so sometimes our feelings, you know, they need a little bit of movement. They need to flow, right? When they stagnate, man, they're just not our friends. They're not our friends. We need to move them. And so Capricorn can be a great motivator to move in spite of maybe the feeling that we think we can't, or be more comfortable if we just stayed on the couch with a blankie, right? Because opposite is Cancer there, and Cancer often would rather just be on the couch with a blankie, right? And that's awesome and that's great. And we love Cancer for that. But we need to move forward. We need to build things. Capricorn wants legacies. It wants to look into the future and kind of stand there on the mountain, look back and be like, I did this. I made the journey. Whether or not you get the outcome, right? It's like, I did the thing, I made the journey, and I'm so happy I did. So we have that ability to be able to do this going forward. So this 8 degrees, woo, we started, let me, hopefully I get this right. Let me pull up a different chart. So we started 2023. All right, so let's take a look at this chart. So this is January 18th, the beginning of 2023. Okay, Mercury, look at this, turn direct, 8 degrees, Capricorn. So we've got this Mercury. Here we go. 8 degrees Capricorn, just like we're experiencing now. So we have this Ouroboros moment, right? Looking at the beginning of 2023, what was it that you learned or that you saw or that you understood or that you were networking or that you were planning? What was it then for you that has come full circle and has come back around to December 12th, right? To has come back around to now? What is it? Right? 2023 is such an interesting year. I called it the Alice in Wonderland year because it felt like Alice going down the rabbit hole, right? Everything was going to be a little bit weird. It was going to be a little bit different. We were going to have things come up where it felt like, is this really happening? I don't know which way to go, or, experiencing things that seem so out of the ordinary that it really asked us to question what we believe was true, question our reality, Saturn, Capricorn, question those people who are in authority right? Capricorn, 10th house, question our inner authority, rediscover ultimately our inner authority. And so we started the year 2023 with Mercury at 8 degrees. We had at that time Sun, Pluto at 28. I didn't talk about this on the last one, but Pluto was back at 28. So again, we have that Ouroboros moment, right? The beginning is the end is the beginning is the end. Pluto at the last degrees, the final degrees of Capricorn, which would be 27, 28, and 29. There's no 30th degree. It starts back over at 0. When a planet, particularly an outer planet, because they take so long to move, gets to the end of a sign, it turns the volume up. Whoop, it's a spinal tap moment. It turns that volume up to 11. Okay, it gets really loud. It gets really, really, really concerned with closing out business. So it's kind of like if you've ever been, like working a job, let's say, and you're like, you can't wait for the weekend and you're looking at the clock and you're looking at the clock. You're like, okay, I get off at 5. Okay, it's 3. Okay, it's 3:05. Okay, it's 3:10, and you're ramped up. You're ready. You're like, you're working retail and you're just trying to clear out all the customers. You're like, go, go, go. And then someone walks in like 5 minutes to 5 and you're like, ah, you get this big moment of like, oh my gosh, I have to get them through as quickly as possible. And it's kind of intense because you don't want to stay later after your day, your week is ended because you cannot wait for your weekend, right? You're ready to go to the next thing, which would be Pluto going into Aquarius, right? So we've got this like ramped up, super loud Pluto, 28 degrees energy. And what has happened in 2023? Well, that could depend depending on where Pluto is in your chart, where Capricorn is in your particular chart, and your relationship to Capricorn energy, to Pluto energy. On a world stage, we have seen some really kind of, what do I want to say? Big, potentially, depending on what your definition of big is, revelations about authority, about governments, about corporations, about different things and how they are using, misusing, abusing, not using in the best ways their so-called, quote, influence, so-called, quote, power, and so-called, quote, privilege. So we have all those things happening at the beginning of 2023. And again, we have that coming back now. So 2023, a big year of awakening, right? And 2024 is going to be even bigger. It's really going to be even bigger because we're ending this year with where we began, right? So we've had this whole year to kind of test out Pluto in Aquarius, to test out all of these. We had 7 planets retrograde at once, which is pretty unusual. We've had this moment to like go back and reflect. This year has been a big transition year in every way you can possibly define transition, because we've needed to close things out. We've needed to look at things in the future. We've needed to stand in that threshold, one foot on each side, and say, okay, I've got this and I've got this. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do now? I have, that Maya Angelou quote, now that, I'm paraphrasing here, now that you know better, do better. You have both those things simultaneously. Now that you know better, do better. So what does that mean for you? How are you going to do that? And we have, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. So we have this echo coming throughout 2023. And if we go back to the chart of that Mercury turning retrograde, again, we look at, Pluto. Hello, 28 degrees here, right? Mercury, 8 degrees. So it's an echo. And so much of this has to do with, what do you believe? Right? Sagittarius, ruler being Jupiter. And, if we were to look at Capricorn here, the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn and Pisces. So the question is, what do you believe? What reality are you willing to live in? What boundaries, particularly psychic boundaries, because we're talking about Pisces here, do you need to put in place to get yourself to stay focused on your vision and on your goal of creating a bigger, better world for yourself and others, right? Because Saturn is a mastery energy. It's not mastery in a negative connotation. It is expertise, right? Is the thing that we are willing to put 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 hours into. It's that discipleship, that devotion that we are willing to spend all this time in so that we can create something that benefits ourselves and hopefully, possibly, potentially people beyond us, right? There's a reason why Saturn and both Capricorn are related to parental figures. Okay. They're related to often father energy, but it doesn't really matter. It's more of this energy of I'm creating something that's meaningful, that creates a legacy that I want to last, that I hope carries on, that I hope endures. And that does not have to be people. It could be a thing. It could be artwork. It could be a song, right? It could be, the kind words that you say to someone that helps them, that stays with them, that they then tell their friend or their children or whatever, and it keeps going, right? That's that Saturn Capricorn energy. And hopefully we're doing it in a way where I don't want to get into too much judgment here, but in a way that it's productive, in a way that it's healthy, in a way that it's bringing more positivity into the world. Now, again, I go back into that judgment because that's another Saturn word. It's also a Libra word where our South Node is sitting judgment. Um, it's also a Virgo word, but anyway, um, judgment. It's a big one right now, right? It's a big one. What's high vibe? What's low vibe? What's the right side of politics? What's the wrong side? What's the right side of this ideology? What's the wrong side? What's the best way to be spiritual? What's the wrong way to be spiritual? There's so much judgment right now. It's like, um, yeah, it's kind of gross. So I don't want to put something out here that's like, okay, if you have a certain belief, you have a certain way of looking at things, or you have a certain legacy that you want to leave, let's not judge it as good or bad. Let's just let it be what it is, right? And decide for ourselves, whatever that means, as we change it. So, yeah. All right. Enough of that. So, looking at the next piece that I want to look at here is let's pull up another chart. So, tying into the moons. I talked about the new moon already, but I want to talk a little bit about the full moon that's coming up on December the 26th, because we have some more things happening here. So by that point, Mercury, our friends, will be back in Sagittarius, right smack bang next to Mars in Sagittarius, right? The full moon is going to be happening in Capricorn, Cancer. Okay, the moon is in her home sign in Cancer. So this may be a little bit of an emotional full moon for us, even though the sun is in Capricorn. And again, Capricorn, this has nothing to do with Capricorn people. It's not that they don't have feelings, they 100% do. Often they have a ton of feelings because of that polarity with Cancer. They just maybe don't wear their heart on their sleeve all the time, or maybe they do. Okay, either way, it's all good. Again, let's leave behind some of this judgment stuff because it's really just arbitrary and silly. And yeah, I think we can do better. So, Mercury, Mars. Let's talk about some of the challenging parts about Mars. So, Mars can inflame things, right? Mars is fire, Mars is hot headed, it's ready to fire and go. So Mars next to Mercury could be potentially inflamed thoughts or words, right? It could be some fiery thoughts, words, communication or what have you. It could be some things where we feel a bit more passionate, and that can go whatever way it goes. So having this happen on December the 26th, 2023. Now, of course, this is holiday season. For those of you that celebrate specific holidays, this will have different connotations, but the holidays in general are challenging times for a lot of people, right? We bring together families, we bring together all those old family stories. Thank you so much. Capricorn, right? Cancer, that's that polarity that happens at this time of year where we don't always get along, right? We have the particular family member or topic that's that red button topic that whatever family member has an Olympic gold medal at pushing the button that pisses one or everybody off, right? So we have that going on. What can we do with this? Well, one of the things you could potentially do if you wanted to do with that Mercury, again, it's retrograde, so it's more internal. This could be bringing back beliefs, right? Stories. Maybe it has something to do with a faith or a religion or an ideology. Those are all within the realm of Sagittarius. That's a hot button topic, right? Maybe it's bringing something back to come up to be dealt with. So, what do we do with that? There's the potential here for arguments. There just is. Let's just say what it is. And so arguments, most people don't like them. A lot of people don't like them. Some people do. And that's fine. We need people that are willing to argue just as much as we need people that are not willing to argue. So heated words, potentially, fighting words, potentially. Does that have to be a bad thing? No. Again, this goes into high vibe, low vibe. Well, you don't need to always just be zen, like, oh, I don't have any feelings. Oh, I never get angry. Oh my gosh, I'm so enlightened. No, no, no. Most people are not in that space, right? Sometimes we need that anger. We need that fire. We need to have finally the argument because the momentum is moving that way. And again, I'm not advocating for verbal violence or any other kind of thing like this, but sometimes it's like, you just need to have the moment where you say, you know what? I don't like that we always talk about this. I don't like the way this has happened over the years. Sometimes you just need that to move forward. And that's okay. That could be the path of least resistance to actually get to a solution that brings about a peaceful resolution, right? So sometimes that's necessary. Again, I'm not advocating for verbal assaults or people just to go out and be total jerks with their words or actions. Okay, that's not cool. We're not talking about that. But sometimes stuff just does need to happen. So this could be a season where things kind of come up. There's a lot of activity, or there's a lot of words, or there's a lot of something that moves the energy finally from getting unstuck so that we can move on, right? We need to move on. We are moving into Pluto and Aquarius, and Pluto and Aquarius does not want to be earthbound. Okay, that's Capricorn territory. Aquarius is outer space. It is like, let's go, let's get on the rocket ship and leave this stuff behind because we've got bigger, wider, more important things to do that have more to do with breaking barriers, creating genius, and benefiting humanity if we can go there. And so that may be what is needed to break us free to move into 2024, which is going to be, wow, it's going to be such a year. So if that kind of stuff is happening, don't freak out. Don't be like, oh my gosh, I'm so low vibe now. Blah, blah, blah. Don't get caught in that like judgment trap. Take it as useful and use it to reflect Mercury retrograde. Use it to reflect on where you may need to change your thoughts, beliefs, ways in which you speak or communicate with yourself and others so that you can go forward. Okay, because we do have this in square also to Neptune. So this could be, I don't want to talk. Actually, I'm going to leave that for the full moon video. I'm not going to get into that now, but with Neptune, I mean, it could be what you or someone else thinks you're fighting on behalf of may or may not be an illusion. And I'm just going to leave it there because I'm going to do a longer video or a different video, excuse me, a different video on the full moon itself. But there's that. So we have that energy possible. Again, if things are coming up that need to come up, maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. So be open to it. All right, so we are looking at, where is our 2024 chart? All right, so we're looking at Mercury going direct January 1st, 2024, possibly December 31st, 2023, depending on where you live. But either way, this starts the new calendar year. Now, it's not the new astrological year, but it is new calendar year, and people really, we resonate with that. So we've got this T square. Oh my goodness gracious, T square with, hello, Mercury Mars, again being the apex. So this is the release point of the energy. Again, maybe this is something that needs to be said, done, moved forward. Maybe Mars needs to take its Martian sword and cut through something, some belief, some ideology, some place and space where you live, some kind of something that needs to propel you forward. Maybe it's something a little bit different. Maybe it's that passion and that drive to say, you know what? I believe in myself, right? We've got that Jupiter, which will be direct at this point in Taurus. I have learned so much about who I am, my value, what I want to do, that it really doesn't matter what other people believe, matters what I believe. And I'm going to go forward and I'm going to change my little corner of the world. I'm going to go forward and help this population. I'm going to go forward and do what I'm going to do. Okay, so we've got that happening here. And of course, this T square is with Neptune and the moon in Virgo, discernment. Can I look through my emotions enough? Can I sort them out? Right. And say, okay, maybe I'm overreacting here. Maybe I'm, justified here, but I can move those things aside. I can sift and sort and say, okay, this is what I need to take with me. This is what I need to leave behind. We need to leave behind baggage. Where we are going with Pluto and Aquarius for 20 plus years, we are not taking that earthbound baggage with us. It's going to be a big year of revolution, personal revolution, potentially world revolution. We'll see, but it's definitely going to be a year of personal revolution if you are open to allowing that to happen. Okay, so this is going to be big, 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 big changes, hopefully for the better. And again, this depends on your belief system. If you believe that the world is just screwed and jacked and is beyond saving, you will live in that reality. That's what people are talking about when they're talking about the new earth and the splitting of the earth. There will be people that choose to stay asleep, that choose to stay in the matrix, and that's okay. It is not your job to wake them up. That is their job. Okay, you can be a living example without shoving your beliefs down someone else's throat. Okay, that's another Sagittarius thing, can be the zealot, right? Don't be the zealot. No one needs that. Even if you're convinced, even if even if you're on the new earth and you want, whomever to come with you, it's their choice. Don't violate their free will. Okay, if they want to go, they'll go. If they don't, they don't. So don't be pushing your views on someone else just because you feel like it's the right thing, because you wouldn't want them to do that to you either. So I just have to say that, because again, we can get a little pushy with this energy, and especially with this Neptune as well, having a little bit of like resurgence of zealousness, which I'm sure y'all have seen, or if you haven't, you're like, oh yeah, now that you mention it, we're having a little bit of religious zealousness going on, some religious wars happening again, and we don't need that. We don't need that. It's not where we need to go. So yeah, lots of energy. This is a really great Mercury retrograde. I really truly believe this is a good one. Let me stop sharing my screen. So I really believe this is the great one. I do. I think there is so much potential to cut out things that we don't need, to really be able to drop old baggage, to look at our own thought processes, the way that we work with things, the way that we are incorporating our new beliefs, our new found, maybe first time ever sense of value and self-worth. And how that also allows us the space to let other people have theirs as well. I've talked about this in other videos, but I'll bring it back here is kind of the 3 or 4 C's, right? We move hopefully from a place of condemnation. I shouldn't have done that. That person's bad. I'm bad. This way of being is bad, right? Get curious about it. Well, why? Why do you think that? Why might that be true? Why might that not be true? Right? When we start to ask questions, when we start to open things up, we create space to look at it more objectively or to move past things that are blocked. Okay, this doesn't mean that you have to cave to someone else's perspective. This doesn't mean that you have to abandon your principles. Like, don't do those things. But in a world that has been so divided over the last few years, the thing I want to say is most people actually do want the same things. Like at the core, maybe their path to getting there is not the same. Maybe it's completely contradictory. Okay, but most of us want the same things at the end of the day, right? We want to be loved. We want to have security. We want to have abundance. We want to experience connections, things like that, right? We all have that in common. And so sometimes it's the things on the surface that get in the way of us remembering that that's who we really are and what we really want. So it's possible this season to find openings in those places and spaces where we can expand our viewpoint, expand our horizons, put ourselves in a bigger, better place to go forward. Because 2024, my friends, oh my goodness, I'm really excited about 2024. I think it's going to be great. I don't know what it's going to be. Even looking at the astrology, I'll just say briefly that Aquarius is kind of unpredictable. So we don't really know. The modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, and Uranus is anything but predictable. Whatever you think it's going to be, it's not going to be. Okay, that's just very Uranian. But the traditional ruler is Saturn, and this is Saturn's maverick viewpoint. This is Saturn being the rebel. So, or Saturn being the autocrat and the dictator, but that's again another video I need to do. But we have this space to really move forward and to move into things that could be beyond our wildest dreams of good, of amazing, of transcendent. We're moving into that. And to do that, we have to be willing to question things. We have to be willing to look at things. We have to be willing to move through these spaces. And I love that this Mercury retrograde is contacting that new moon, the full moon. It's pulling back to the beginning of 2023. It's actually pulling back to a number of things, but to the beginning of 2023 in particular. And this is amazing. This is such an amazing time to harness all these things, take them all together, take an inventory, use that mercurial side of you that can put things together, make connections, and use it to your best advantage so that when we go forward, we go into the new year, we can be our best versions of ourselves and we can help the most people around us. It doesn't have to be directly, it could be indirectly by our example of just how fantastic life can be. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it was illuminating. Thank you so much. Let me know what you thought. Comment below. I do respond to the comments, and I do really care what you guys think. So thank you to all my new subscribers and all the people that are following me. It means the world to me because I love astrology. I know what it can do. I know that it can help you. If you want to book a personal reading, I have some available in January. You can book it through the link below. If you're confused about that, you can always send me a comment or a message and I will get back to you. Enjoy this Mercury retrograde. Happy December. Happy year-end closing coming up. Take care. Mwah. Bye.